got to get your take on China because this story really blows my mind. The Philadelphia Office of Immigrant Affairs is expected to raise the Chinese flag in front of City Hall to celebrate the establishment of the Chinese Communist Party in Philadelphia. The event is sponsored by the Pennsylvania United Chinese Coalition. Senator, your reaction?
So this is one of those insane news stories that you're not going to believe is even real, but trust me, it is. So today, the city of Philadelphia has elected to fly the flag of the Chinese Communist Party outside of City Hall. That's right, we have communist flags waving at government buildings in the birthplace of America's independence. But wait a minute, it actually gets worse. Because the reasons and justification they're giving for doing this may actually be more insane than the action itself. And let me start by prefacing that whatever the justification, it's wrong. Because I believe it is unacceptable for any foreign flag of any foreign country, I don't care what it is, to be flying in the United States, especially outside of government buildings, because there ought to be no expression of dual loyalty or sympathy. This is America. We support America. Our government that we pay tax dollars to especially should make it clear, no, we're serving the American citizens and nowhere else. But that said, even on that front, it gets worse. Because you may be thinking to yourself, that the real reason the Philadelphia Democrats are flying this flag is to do some type of lazy pandering to Chinese voters or something like that. Hey, maybe it's Chinese New Year or there's a festival going on. And so that's what they're trying to show solidarity for, not the CCP. But I'd first of all like to note that it is not Chinese New Year. It is September 30th, which directly coincides with October 1st. Keep in mind, China is 12 hours ahead, so it is already October 1st over in China. Do you know what October 1st is in China, folks? The anniversary and founding date of the People's Republic of China. Yes, that is right. That is the day where the communists declared that they had won the Civil War and set up the modern Chinese regime. So yes, this is actually about showing support, not for Chinese people, but for the Chinese government. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're still skeptical about it, I'd like to further point out, and I'm not making this up, that the very reason the Philadelphia city government elected to do this is because they were lobbied and potentially even bribed by a nonprofit that is essentially a front organization for the Chinese Communist Party into doing this. So that is right. That's the reason the Chinese flag is flying, folks. We're not making this up. So I already understand you're probably in denial. You're probably like, there's no way there's more context to this or something. Trust me, I did plenty of research. I tried to figure out maybe that's not what's really going on here. The end conclusion I reached is, yes, that is exactly what is going on here. So in today's video, guys, I'll bring you this insane story. We'll explain to you what is happening. Do us a favor, though, first. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support. And that said, so here's the kind of initial headline, right? The Democrats today, again, on the anniversary of the founding of the PRC, are set to raise the Chinese Communist Party flag over Philadelphia City Hall tomorrow in a display of support for China's regime and values. Now, here is the full piece of detail. On September 30th, Philadelphia's Office of Immigrant Affairs plans to hoist the red flag in front of City Hall to, yes, again, celebrate the anniversary of the establishment of the CCP. Now, the reasons they're doing this again get very interesting. So, the proposed event is being sponsored by the Pennsylvania United Chinese Coalition. And you may be asking, what is that? Is that some type of just like Chinese people organization in America? No. It's part of a network of such organizations that are attempting to boost the CCP's reputation and reach within the U.S. under the guise of cultural exchange. Now, why do we say that specifically? Because it's also worth pointing out, by the way, the great irony of this, if you want to say you're standing with the American Chinese people, that most of them are here. A great deal of the Chinese diasporas in the United States, because they're, of course, fleeing this very government. But no, what does this organization say? Their website also reveals their staunch opposition to Taiwan's independence and their commitment to quote-unquote peaceful cross-strait unification. That is right. So again, If you thought maybe it's just some like Chinese people organization, no, it is a front organization for the CCP. We know exactly what is going on here. Now, that said, the excuse has been, as you could imagine, that the flag raising has been justified as a support for Philadelphia's strong and vibrant Chinese community, but it is no such thing. Because again, we're not doing this on Chinese New Year, some type of just cultural thing that's been around thousands of years before the CCP. We are not waving the Taiwanese flag, which a great deal of the Chinese diaspora would like to see instead of the CCP. Not all of them, obviously, but, a great deal fled specifically because they don't want to live in China. Even the modern ones who come over here, because they want to work in the United States or something. A lot of them are doing that because they don't want to live in China, right? Even if they're not directly like political refugees, they just prefer not to be under that system. But anyways, the city already obviously has appropriate celebrations for Chinese Philadelphians like the Lantern Festival with the traditional culture and all that stuff. But no, they're doing this on October 1st in China. Even more disconcordantly, many Chinese Americans in Philadelphia, as they point out here, correct, are in Philadelphia because they wanted the freedom and opportunity denied to them in China. Very few such individuals seem to have such interest in celebrating the regime that persecuted them, let alone returning to China, which is also seemingly what it's pushing there. The flag raising is at best a veiled insult to them and at worst a chilling reminder that the CCP is here in the city where they found refuge. And that's another thing that needs to be investigated here. How is it that foreign influence organizations get to operate in the United States under the guise of being either just nonprofits or, in this case, it's called the United Chinese American Coalition, whatever it's called or something like that. But you're basically acting as a foreign lobby, right? I'm going to guess they're not registered as such. Gotta look into that stuff. And China, by the way, is far from the only country involved in it, but I don't understand how that's allowed to happen. And I don't understand how the city of Philadelphia is falling for that garbage. It really begs questions. Is there some type of grant system going on? Basically corruption, bribes? It's really worth questioning here. Now, as is pointed out as well, of course, yes, less than a mile from City Hall, the site of the proposed CCP flag raising, less than a mile, folks, Betsy Ross stitched the first American flag in a small house on Arch Street, legendarily at the direct request of George Washington. And then almost 250 years later, here we are, right? The Stars and Stripes was then adopted by the nascent United States on June 14th, 1777, and was proudly flown during the Revolutionary War, started in Philadelphia in terms of the Declaration, by the way, that brought us our independence. Yes, almost adjacent to Betsy Ross's house is the site of Dunlap's Press that disseminated the Declaration of Independence, and this is where we're doing this, right? How more greatly can you just signal directly, hey, we're an occupied nation? How did they do it? Did they invade? Did they, take us over? No, they just sent some nonprofit over here, and we're like, okay. You will never see a civilization voluntarily surrender in ways such as this. But anyways, at the critical moment in America's history, we're now obviously also, again, approaching our 250th anniversary, and that's what we're doing. That's how we're celebrating it. The Philadelphia Office of Affairs would much rather would do much better to reject the request, yes, to raise a symbol of communist oppression, true, and instead gather all Philadelphians together for a timeless symbol of liberty, yes, the American flag at a government building in America. Let me ask you the question, guys. Do you think this would ever happen in China? Okay? I'm sure they make American flags to sell to us in their factories, but do you think that any city hall or municipal or government building over there is like, yes, we're celebrating America by waving the American flag, especially at a time of geopolitical tension such as this? Which is why I further add to how ridiculously tone deaf it is. We're in this trade war with China. They're kind of adversary to us in terms of economics. There might even be a military conflict coming very soon. And you're just like, hey, city where we were founded in. Hey, let's put up the foreign flag, right? It's insane. It is ridiculous. And I again point out to you guys that, any excuse that the government wants to do, where they're saying, yes, government officials maintain that the flag raising ceremony is a demonstration of support for the buzzing Chinese community, is utterly ridiculous and nonsense. This is so scandalous, ladies and gentlemen, that even some Democrat congressmen have pushed back on it, specifically Congressman Khanna, although in total fairness, he kind of is one of those Democrats that sometimes gives not insane, sensible takes. So I really wonder whether the rest of the party is condemning this. But that said, take a listen to even his reaction to this story.
And our number one adversary, as China continues to undermine the United States. Here we have a situation today in Philadelphia, where the Philadelphia Office of Immigrant Affairs is expected to raise the Chinese flag in front of City Hall to celebrate the establishment of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, this event is sponsored by the Pennsylvania United Chinese Coalition, Congressman. I find it really striking that they're going to raise the Chinese flag in Philadelphia, the birthplace of the Declaration of Independence. Your reaction?
Well, it's, of course, most importantly, the birthplace of the independence, but it also happens to be my birthplace. I was born in Philadelphia in 1976. I'm a bicentenary baby, and I don't get it. I don't agree with it. I mean, the only flag that should be going up there is the American flag. And the Communist Party, as you know, did so much harm. I mean, the Great Leap Forward led to famine. The Cultural Revolution led to huge violations of human rights. We had a bipartisan delegation there led by Ranking Member Adam Smith on the Armed Services Committee. And the biggest thing we pushed was the fentanyl categorization. We said this is bipartisan. By the way, our ambassador there, Ambassador Perdue, is doing an excellent job. And I have a call in to Secretary Besson to brief him on what we did. They are willing, in my view, to do a deal on fentanyl and classifying all the precursors in exchange for some relief on the tariffs. That would be progress. And there again, I would support the president and credit the administration if they get that done.
Yeah. Congressman, thank you for taking that trip to China. That was huge. And thanks for being here this morning, sir. Good to see you.
Yeah, well, needless to say, I'm not sure that Khanna speaks for the rest of the Democrat Party. But on the substance, he is indeed correct. First and foremost, yes, that's the most basic part of this. Foreign flags should not be waving at City Hall. But furthermore, the very same political movement or group of people was constantly screaming at us about these buzzwords of oppression and genocide and all these things is like, yay, let's wave the flag of the CCP, right? And furthermore, I'd add a third component to this. I like to remind everyone that historically and justifiably, by the way, the American government, of course, was not in support of the CCP. We actually backed Chiang Kai-shek and the Chinese nationalists. And so in that sense, it's also as if like the UK on July 4th would put up our flag, would put up the American flag outside of Buckingham Palace. Like, that's on the level of how insane this is when you also consider the history of the Cold War. And even if you want to say nowadays, like, the Chinese government is not really exactly the same as it was under Mao, I mean, that's kind of fair. But at the same time, we're still in a rivalry and conflict essentially with them over trade, with over this fentanyl issue, obviously, as Khanna brings up, right? A lot of people in this country, hundreds of thousands actually per year, are dying because of the fentanyl components that China is sending over to the Mexican and Latin American drug cartels. And then amidst all of it, they're just like, yay, we love China. Let's celebrate the founding of the PRC. Okay. Truly incredible stuff, guys. I mean, I just can't believe that. But anyways, with that said, let me know your thoughts on this story in the comment section down below. Are you likewise struggling to grasp that it's even real? Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.